Nobody believed in her. Not the analysts, not the bookmakers, not even the thousands of fans packed into Manolo Santana Stadium that Tuesday in Madrid. Eala stepped onto that court as a wild card, just 20 years old, fresh out of Manila, carrying a serve the tennis world had already dismissed. Across the net stood Belinda Bencic, a player who had taken time away from the sport to give birth, dropped as low as 421 in the rankings, and fought her way back to world number 11. That's not just a difficult matchup. That's destiny putting you on trial. And early on, it looked like destiny had already made its decision. The first set told a harsh story, but then something changed. Something inside her snapped into place. 2 hours and 27 minutes later, Alex collapsed to her knees on the Madrid clay. Her hands pressed into the red dirt, tears pouring down her face as the entire stadium rose in applause. Because what happened out there? The scoreboard doesn't even come close to telling it. Belinda Bencic's journey alone is one of the most remarkable comebacks in tennis. A player who stepped away from the tour, welcomed her daughter Bella in April, and returned stronger, hungrier, and more determined than ever. In 2024, she returned just 6 months later, ranked 421st in the world, and began rebuilding everything from scratch, match by match, tournament by tournament. By the time Madrid came around, Belinda Bencic had surged back to world number 11, holding a strong 14-5 record for the season. Fresh off a United Cup title with Switzerland and a deep run at Indian Wells, she wasn't just back. She was better, sharper, calmer, more dangerous. Her movement was flawless. Her timing? Almost surgical. She could absorb pace and redirect it effortlessly, turning defense into attack in a single stroke. And in Madrid, where the altitude makes the ball fly faster and reduces the bite of topspin, her game felt tailor-made. She stepped inside the baseline, took the ball early, and dictated rallies without needing brute force. She wasn't just the favorite. She had earned that status completely. On the other side, Eala entered on a wild card with a shaky 2026 clay record of just 1 win and 2 losses. Weeks earlier in Stuttgart, she had been convincingly beaten by Leila Fernandez in straight sets, 6-1, 6-4. And before she could regain momentum, she suffered another defeat, this time to Jelena Ostapenko. Everything pointed one way. Everything except what actually happened next. The week before, things weren't much better. Eala was still battling the same issue that had followed her since turning pro, her serve. It kept breaking down at the worst moments. Just 7 aces across the early season, a first serve percentage dipping below 60% in multiple matches, and double faults piling up at a rate that would keep any coaching team awake at night. On paper, this looked like a mismatch with a predictable ending. And the first set didn't challenge that idea. It confirmed it. Alex practically handed it over. 3 double faults in the opening 4 games, an early break after a weak second serve that barely cleared the net, and Belinda Bencic glided through the set 6-3 without ever needing to push herself. She didn't rush. She didn't force. She simply waited, watching Alex unravel, staying composed, controlled, and quietly ruthless. But beneath the surface, something important had already begun to shift, something almost no one in the stadium noticed at the time. Because when you win a set mainly due to your opponent's mistakes, there's a hidden danger waiting in the next one. That's the trap. You stop playing your match. You begin reading everything through your opponent's errors instead of driving the game with your own identity. For Belinda Bencic, it was subtle but important. Her court positioning in that first set sat a little deeper than usual. She was absorbing, waiting, completely comfortable letting Eala self-destruct, and for 35 minutes, it worked perfectly. But there was a cost. She never fully imposed the inside-the-baseline aggression that had defined her best tennis all season. She wasn't dictating, she was reacting. And when you win on your opponent's terms, you're always just one adjustment away from losing control. That adjustment came right at the start of the second set. And it came from Alex's return game. This is the tactical turning point, the core of everything that followed. Because yes, Alex's serve has real limitations. At 1.75 meters, she doesn't get the same natural leverage taller players use to generate easy power. Her ball toss can drift. Her second serve often sits up, inviting attack. These aren't opinions, they're well-documented weaknesses. But here's what most people miss. You don't have to fix your biggest weakness mid-match if you can completely reshape the battle somewhere else. No point pretending those flaws don't exist, they're real. But what almost every conversation about Eala misses is the other side of the equation. Because for every weakness in her serve, there's a return game that most players on tour would trade almost anything to have. She reads direction early, sometimes before the ball even leaves the racket. Her left-handed forehand opens up sharp, uncomfortable angles that right-handers simply can't create from the same position. And the way she takes the ball on the rise, with a compact, explosive swing, doesn't just neutralize pace, it flips the pressure instantly. Suddenly, the server is the one reacting before the rally has even begun. That's not accidental. She's been shaped inside the system at Rafa Nadal Academy since she was 13, where return drills are treated as the backbone of elite tennis. The philosophy runs deep. Build pressure from the very first strike, turn defense into offense immediately. It's the same mindset that Rafael Nadal built his career on, taking what's supposed to be your opponent's biggest advantage and turning it into their biggest source of stress. And Alex hasn't just learned that philosophy. She's starting to weaponize it. She didn't just learn that philosophy, she's lived it. At the start of the second set, Eala flipped the script. She began attacking Belinda Bencic's second serve with a level of intent that had been completely missing before. 2 steps inside the baseline. Returns struck early, deep, and heavy, again and again into Bencic's backhand. And that's where the pattern started to build. Bencic's backhand is solid, arguably her most reliable shot, but it's not her most aggressive. When pushed deep and wide on that side, her instinct is control, not attack. She plays it safe, goes cross-court, resets the rally. Against most players, that's enough. But not here, because against a left-hander already positioned inside the court, already hunting the next ball, that pattern becomes a trap. A slow, calculated squeeze. Each return pushed Bencic a little wider. Each neutral ball gave Alex another step forward. Each rally tilted the geometry further out of balance. Until eventually something had to break. It happened in the 5th game. Bencic serving. Alex stepped in again, reading the serve early, and drove a deep return straight into the backhand corner. Into the backhand. Belinda Bencic replied with a cautious cross-court ball, and that was the opening Eala had been waiting for. She stepped around, unleashed a forehand inside out, and pinned it right on the baseline. You could see the shift instantly. Bencic's body language changed. More bounces before the serve. A glance toward her coaching box. A subtle urgency creeping in. She started going for bigger first serves, trying to overpower the problem instead of solving it. And that's exactly the state Alex's game is built to create. Because when a server starts pressing, margins shrink. Timing tightens. Confidence wavers. And then the errors come. 2 double faults in the 7th game alone. The pressure had flipped completely. Alex took the second set 6-4. And just like that, the entire match had a new pulse, a different energy, one that was no longer controlled by Bencic. The third set? That was something else entirely. Not smooth, not pretty, but gripping in that raw, unpredictable way only high-stakes tennis can be, when momentum swings wildly and both players are pushed right to the edge. Both players knew exactly what this meant. For Belinda Bencic, losing to an unseeded wild card on clay would crack the momentum she'd been building all season. For Eala, this was something bigger, a chance to dismantle every doubt about her ceiling, especially on a surface that had exposed her weaknesses so publicly. And pressure like that doesn't produce safe tennis. It produces chaos. The third set unraveled into something raw and unpredictable. 4 breaks of serve in the opening 6 games alone. Alex breaks. Bencic responds instantly. Alex strikes again. Bencic answers right back. There was no rhythm, no control. It felt almost lawless, because neither player could rely on their serve to steady things. Alex's first serve percentage dropped to 51%. Bencic's hovered at 54%. Both were leaking under pressure, and suddenly the match wasn't about dominance anymore. It was about survival. Who could hold their nerve just a little longer? Who could manage the damage just a little better? Because at this point, it wasn't about playing perfect tennis. It was about enduring the storm. In that kind of environment, the smallest edges start to matter more than anything. Eala had been here before. She understood how Madrid's clay plays, quicker than Italian Open or French Open, with a low skid that punishes late preparation. She knew the swirling afternoon wind inside the Caja Magica, how it shifts without warning. She knew the creeping shadows across the baseline as evening settles in. Madrid had never been comfortable for her, but it was a familiar discomfort. And in a match where both players were struggling to hold serve, that kind of familiarity becomes an invisible advantage, something no stat sheet can measure. The decisive moment came in the ninth game. Belinda Bencic serving at 4-5, trying to stay alive and force Alex to serve it out. The game stretched, tense and grinding, momentum swinging back and forth. Bencic even saved one break point with the fastest serve of the match, 172 kilometers per hour. For a moment, it felt like she might escape. Then, another double fault. Another break point. This time, Alex didn't go for power. She chipped the return low, letting it skid sharply off the clay, staying beneath Bencic's strike zone. Bencic had to reach down awkwardly, trying to lift a forehand from well below her knees.